Jungle. Ah!
Hey everyone, it's Dave here at Blue Bears Games, and this week's main video of the week, we are actually doing a Blues Brews. Now, if you don't remember, because it's been a while since I've done one of these, this is my own personal Commander deck build. This is my version of a deck that I use myself. So this week, we're going to do Edgar Markov. I chose Edgar to do this week because Innistrad Midnight Hunt's coming out, and what better to focus on a vampire-style deck than this week for the whole, Midnight Hunt release coming up in about a week or two. So let's go ahead and get a couple things out of the way before I get into the deck. Please excuse the fact that I'm still somehow sick, so please excuse the coughing. I did go to the doctor to have it looked at. They gave me some steroids. It worked for 2 weeks, and it's still here. Whatever I have, it didn't get killed. So please excuse that. I'll try to work on that. I've been going to the doctor for the last couple weeks. On top of that, that leads me to my next thing. I have been going to a lot of doctors to get this all taken care of, so please bear with me for that. I'm actually filming this a couple days before I actually release it, rather than a week or two beforehand where I can edit it. So if the editing is a little off, please bear with me. I have no time. So other than that, let's get into the deck. It's Edgar. So Edgar, if you don't know who it is, you should by now. He is the black, white, and red from 2000, I think, in, 18? I think it was the 2018 Commander Precons where they all had Eminence. And the Ur-Dragon and the Cat one, the Feline Ferocity deck and all that stuff was released at the same time. He is a 4/4 Vampire Knight. His Eminence is whenever you cast another vampire spell, if Edgar Markov is either in your command zone or on the battlefield, you create a 1/1 black vampire creature token. He also has first strike and haste, and then whenever Edgar Markov attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on each vampire you control. I've got to be honest with you. I've been trying to test this deck as much as possible. This is not a complete version, by the way. This is a 100-card deck, but I have not acquired all the cards I want to, so some changes will be made to this in a future video. But for now, I'm going to show you what I've come up with that I had on hand. So in my testing, I do a lot of what I call fishbowl testing to see how the lands work and everything. See if it comes up nice in hand. And I've come to the conclusion that I'm never casting Edgar. His ability is just so good outside of being in play that you just don't have to. So that was my first observation. So let me get into the deck. And this one might be a long video. Hopefully it's not. I'm not going to read every card to you. I'm going to show you what every card is, and I'll explain some reasons for some of the cards. So obviously we're in a 3-card deck command tower. Cavern of Souls, choosing Vampire, obviously, because you don't want anybody to counter any of your stuff. It's a good choice. Path of Ancestry. Why? Because I want to be able to scry through my deck, because this deck has a small weakness, and I'll explain that. Nomad Outpost is the tri-land before triomes were made. There isn't a triumph for this color scheme, so that's what's in here. And then the Shock land for black-white, a check land for black-white, the Pain land for black-white. And then when you're in black, I always like to use the Tainteds. I did not have a Tainted Peak. I do, however, have one coming. I did order the Commander decks for, I believe it was for, what was it for? The Adventures of D&D. The Adventures of the Forgotten Realms D&D, and there's a Tainted Peak in one of them, so I'm going to change it in, but that'll be for the next video. Marsh Flats is the fetch land for black-white, and then Blood Crypt, Dragon Skull Summit, a Luxury Suite, and that's a foily one too, just because I had it. Bloodstained Mire, a Sacred Foundry, obviously the red-white, and you don't really need a lot of the other ones. I might actually make some changes to the lands going in the next one, where instead of using the red and white stuff, I might actually just play off of the black and just do black-red and black-white stuff and take out the red-white stuff, because at this moment there's not as much need for them. Battlefield Forge and an Arid Mesa. Opal Palace, just because, I mean, this might come out, I don't know. It's not really working so far in my testing. The combination of a Cabal Coffers and an Urborg, obviously, because most of this deck is going to be black, and it's just a good combo. A Phyrexian Tower, because you're going to have a lot of tokens to sacrifice, so it can help you ramp a little bit. An unclaimed territory, obviously naming vampire. A Vault of the Archangel. It taps to give, for 4 and tap it, you can give all your creatures Death Touch and Lifelink. I mean, life gain in this deck is pretty much a given. Reliquary Tower, this may come out depending on, my testing has shown me the weakness means this card isn't needed, but if I can fix that weakness, it'll stay in. Arch of Araska, why? Because I don't have a War Room. If I had a playset of War Rooms, I wouldn't even have enough. I would need a War Room for almost every deck. And yes, I understand Edgar Markov is a 3-color commander and War Room would hurt, but this deck is a life gain deck on top of everything else, so it doesn't hurt as much. Strip Mine, because every deck I have has to have some kind of land destruction just in case. And then Swamps, I've got 5 of them, 2 plains and 2 mountains. And that's just my first iteration for the lands. Now, I will be making some changes to this deck as I go. However, I don't have all the cards I need, so we'll go further into it as I go. I'm going to hope to change some things. The ramp section, no green, so obviously got to rely on mana rocks. So obviously a Soul Ring, an Arcane Signet, Thought Vessel, and Chromatic Lantern. This is like my 4 Holy Grail. Like, this is like what I want. Yes, I don't have a Mana Crypt in here. I don't have a Jeweled Lotus. If I had them, they'd be in here as well. But for now, that's what I have. I don't have any of those cards available to me to put in this deck right now, so they don't go in there. Now, the meat and the potatoes of this deck is obviously vampires, so let me show you the vampires I've chosen. Each one of these was chosen for a very specific reason. I'm going to go over some, but it's going to take a while to go over all of them. So I'll go as quickly as possible. So Adaptive Automaton, obviously you choose Vampire, it's a Lord. Vicious Conquistador, it's a 1/2 for 1, and then when it attacks, everybody loses 1. You can see where I'm going with that. Vampire, the Dire Moon, probably one of the best 1-drops for vampires. It's one that casts 1/1, has Death Touch and Lifelink, why wouldn't you? And then Knight of the Ebon Legion, because it can actually grow as you go. So while it's a 1 to cast, it actually gets bigger and bigger and bigger, so it can keep up with the turn ratio. So it's not just a 1 to cast 1/2. Later in the game, it could still be 5/6, or something that keeps up with the turns. Oathsworn Vampire for its recursion ability, and because the recursion comes from gaining life, and this deck has a lot of ways to do that. Gifted Aetherborn, Lifelink is where most of the life gain is going to come from. Bloodghast, because again, it can return. It has recursion. Cordial Vampire, to make your vampires all bigger. Obviously, that's the point here, is it's going to be a quasi-tribal, but there's other things here. It's a life drain deck. It's got some aristocrat stuff, so there's a bunch of ways you can win with this deck. Silver Smoke Ghoul, I really liked when this was spoiled on the M21 spoilers. It's both a zombie and a vampire, so it can go into both decks that I've run, which is 1 vampire, and I also run the Scarab God from my zombie deck, and he can go in both. And the reason why I like him is because he sacrifices himself to draw a card, and then he can come back, so he recurs himself as a somewhat card draw mechanic. Veto, because he enables quite a lot. So giving lifelink to everything, again, I said there's a lot of life gain in the deck. He gives it to all of your creatures. He also, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. He kind of enables infinite. So the Nighthawk, because again, lifelink. He's also a Death Toucher and flying. Drana, I put in there because, okay, flying, obviously, first strike, great. 3 to cast, 2/3, great. But whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put that many +1/+1 counters on each attacking creature. So he helps grow your horde. The Scavenger I put in here, I think it was the last card I put in, the most recent one anyway. Again, another flying, death-touching lifelinker. Lifelink is one of the main reasons, but he also gets bigger as the game progresses. Vindictive Vampire from some aristocrat fund. So whenever a creature you control dies and you're going to have a lot of tokens, he does the aristocrat thing, which is deal damage to each opponent, and you gain a life, and again, more life gain. Twilight Prophet, man, is this card good. I use this on Arena all the time. I actually spent a mythic rare wild card, a mythic wild card, whatever, specifically for this card because it enables so much. So he's 4 to cast for a 2/4 flyer. That's great. He has Ascend, which means that if you have 10 or more permanents, you gain the city's blessing, blah, blah, blah. But the weakness that this deck has is card draw. We're not in blue. Black has some things, but it's not the same as red and blue where you could just cycle through stuff. So this is one of the ways I've chosen to... First of all, he's a vampire, so he fits into the theme of the deck. And he helps get cards in your hand. So if you have the City's Blessing, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may... You look at reveal the top card of your library, put it in your hand, and then each opponent loses X life and you gain X life. So it fits every part of this deck's theme. It helps it draw cards, or not really draw cards, but get cards into your hand. It deals damage to everybody, and then it helps you gain life. It's literally the most, I guess, appropriate card for this deck. So, and there's a reason why this card is, a pretty penny. Bloodline Keeper, because he creates more tokens as if though you need them. When he transforms, he also, I'll show you that. So he starts off making 2/2s. He also flips to make 2/2s, but he makes all other vampires you control get +2/+2. So he is both a token generator and a lord for vampires. So he's a great fit for this deck. Sanctum Seeker, this is like a game ender. This helps you close out games, especially in a tribal style deck where it's mostly going to be combat tricks, or this deck goes around that whole thing and needing to be combat, but it can use combat as both a life drain and for combat damage. So whenever vampire you control attacks, each opponent loses life and you gain a life. You've got fodder to do that with all the tokens that you're making. Vampire Nocturnus, it's another vampire lord, sort of. I mean, whenever the top you have the top card of your library revealed, and if it's a vampire, all of your vampires get +2/+1 in flying. So it's a lord. Epicure of Blood also promotes a infinite combo, so whenever you gain life, each opponent loses a life. The Blood Witch, flying pro white, and then it's a 4/4. It's 5 to cast, and then it helps recur things and gain life, so fits in the deck very well. Champion at Dusk is another option I chose to try and negate the fact that we don't have a lot of card draw, so it helps you draw cards. Necropolis Regent, it's beefing up your creatures, and it beefs them up pretty good. Especially since this one, whenever a creature, not just, like, he doesn't buff just others, he buffs himself as well. So, Sky Marcher Aspirant, it's one to cast 2/1, and then it has flying if you have the City's Blessing, so another way that you can get the City's Blessing. Hopefully you can have it out before Twilight Prophet comes out. Mavrin Fane, so this one's here for more token creation, and they all have lifelink, so more life gain. Falconwrath Exterminator helps you eliminate your opponent's creatures, so whenever it deals combat damage, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and there are other ways to put counters on them, as you saw, and then you can pump into them to do a damage, deals damage to target creature equal to the number of counters on him, so he can start picking off your opponent's creatures. Rakasher, more +1/+1 counter fun, and whenever a vampire, not him, a vampire deals damage, more +1/+1 counters. Cruel Celebrant, whenever it or another creature dies, or Planeswalker dies, each opponent loses life and you gain a life, so more aristocrats. Legion Lieutenant, plain and simple, just a anthem effect. Indulging Patrician, 1/4 flying lifelinker for 3, more lifelink. And at the beginning of your end step, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, each opponent loses 3 life, so more aristocrats. See the theme? Next 2 cards are going to really fit the theme. Drana's Emissary, at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses life and you gain a life, more life drain. Sorry, the next card after this will perpetuate it. Stromkirk Captain, more anthem effects and gives all your vampires first strike. And then the other, I like these 2 cards together. The Emissary, I love the Emissary with Cliffhaven Vampire. So it's a 4 to cast 2/4 flyer, and then whenever you gain life, each opponent loses life. Remember, each instance of lifelink equals an instance of life gain. So if you have a lot of creatures with lifelink out, even if you do not get through to your opponent, when they gain you life, each instance triggers the Cliffhaven Vampire. So keep that in mind. Elenda, the Dusk Rose, I actually pulled this out of a pack when I was literally hunting for it, and only this card out of a box. I actually got it, which was the first. Again, lifelink, and then whenever another creature dies, and that's any creature, just keep that in mind. It gets a +1/+1 counter, and then when Elenda dies, create X11 vampire tokens with lifelink. where X is Elenda's power when it died. Olivia, now we're not just pinging creatures, but now we're stealing them. So remember that there are so many different ways to win in this deck. It's not just about combat. I know that it's kind of weird to say that, but it's tribal, but it's so much more. So those are the creatures I've chosen at the moment that I have, and I know that we're going to get more vampires and a lot more out of Innistrad Midnight Hunt. So this is just iteration 1. I'll go and make another video for this deck. I have plans to make updated videos on all the commander decks I've had so far that are my own. I just haven't gotten it. I've been so busy. So it'll be coming. For defense, now everything else here is going to be in the realm of, okay. It's going to be in the realm of utility. So this is defense. Vandal Blast is probably one of the best spells that Red has as far as defense. It overloads and destroys all artifacts you don't control. This deck doesn't have a lot of artifacts, so you could probably change this out for a Shatter Storm or something of that nature, because you don't really have a lot except for a couple mana rocks. But there are a few, so you don't want to kill your own. Heliod's Intervention, more gain life, or destroys artifacts and enchantments. You gotta have some enchantment destruction in a deck somewhere, and this one actually can kill a lot in one shot. So Despark, it exiles a permanent with converted mana cost 4 or greater. For me, this is more along the lines of a Eldrazi elimination than anything. Despark is in there for that, but it has other things. It's a Crater Hoof Behemoth killer. It's a lot of things. So just keep in mind, this can actually take out a lot of people's kill cards. Anguished Unmaking, same thing. It exiles a non-land permanent, but it makes you lose 3 life. That's usually a downfall. In a deck like this where there's a lot of life gain, it's not really that much of a downfall. Exile, again, takes things out that are indestructible. And Bedevil destroys an artifact, a creature, or a Planeswalker. Gotta have some Planeswalker destruction as well, and it's 2 black and a red, so at instant speed. There are other ones I could use. I don't have them at the moment. And this deck, again, will be getting some small upgrades in the near future. It's just, again, time is kind of a hard one. I'm actually doing this early because I have some stuff I wanted to put in here, but I did not have time to acquire them. Utility artifacts, obviously a Skull Clamp. Again, the main problem this deck has is running out of fuel. Skull Clamp uses those tokens that you can create, makes them die, makes you draw 2 cards. Herald's Horn helps kind of get through. I did a fishbowl test where this actually hit on turn 2, and then every card I got, I wish I was playing an actual game with it. When I was doing the testing, the card I would reveal was a vampire, so I would draw it, and the card I didn't was either a land or something non-vampire, and then the next turn that I would play, it was a vampire revealed with Herald's Horn, and then the next card wasn't. It was really nice. It can get a lot of cards in your hand if you're lucky. Bantu's Monument, more life drain. This is definitely aristocrat style. So all your black creatures now cost 1 less to cast. That's not the reason it's in here, but boy, is that a bonus in a mostly black tricolor deck. It's because whenever you cast a creature spell, now with Edgar, no matter where Edgar is, you're not just creating a token, you're also draining your opponent. So great things all around with that. Icon of Ancestry, it's kind of akin to the Herald's Horn. It's not as good. It's an anthem, so it makes creatures of a chosen type get +1/+1. I think that's 5 or 6 total for the deck that are in here. And if you count the one that relies on your card being, the top card being a vampire, I think it's 7. But it also has, look at the top 3 cards of your library, and then you may reveal a creature card of the chosen type. So you can reveal a vampire, put it in your hand, and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like one of those things where it's helpful as an anthem and putting cards in your hand. Coat of Arms, I know that this one can be a 2-sided coin. It could be a razor's edge, if you will. It could hurt you, but in a deck like this where you're getting a lot of tokens that are created just for having your commander at all, not even in play, but just having a commander, it can be more beneficial in most cases. Against slivers, I might take it out. That would be the only, I think the only tribe I would take it out for. Because if I'm facing an elf deck, I'm okay with that. I think my vampires can hold up to an elf horde. I don't think it can stand up to a sliver horde with this in play. So, and then one of my new favorite cards that I didn't realize how powerful it was until I started looking at the way it works. Bolus' Citadel. This guy, I mean, in a deck that gains a lot of life and puts out a lot of tokens, this is like a badass, this is like the ringer. So this drops, and then you can take all that life gain that you've taken and start just flipping cards over from the top of your deck on into play, almost akin to the Urza's Lord of Artificer, with the artifact that lets you look at the top card of your library, and if it's an artifact or colorless card, you can play it. This is kind of akin to that. The difference between the two is that you don't even have to pay mana for this. You can pay that. You actually can't pay mana for it. You have to pay your life. And in a deck like this where there's a lot of life gain, it's a superstar. And then, of course, there's the sacrifice 10 non-land permanents, and they can be tokens, and each opponent loses 10 life. So those are the utility artifacts I've chosen for now. Not much of that's going to change, though. All right, what else we got here? We've got enchantments. This is a section that gets a little hairy. It's a little thicker, but not as thick as the creatures. So, card draw, Phyrexian Arena. Black Market, Ramp. So we don't have either one in these colors. We don't have ramp, or very good ramp. And we don't have card draw, so that helps fix it. I play this Black Market in Arena, and in Arena it actually is quite useful. I do, however, play it in a black-blue deck where, I have a card that lets me play cards for free, so As Foretold, obviously, is the card I'm talking about. Dictate of Erebos is good for defense, as well as, just clearing somebody's board. It makes it so that whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent has to sacrifice a creature, and you can cast it as an instant, so surprise somebody. The one thing I didn't include in here, as you saw in the artifact section here, was I didn't include a way to sack creatures other than the Phyrexian Tower. That may change in the near future, depending on how I see this run when I actually get to play it. This is a card that may come out. I don't have enough. I've recently learned that I don't like land tax in anything more than a 1 or 2 color deck. I think I had 7 or 8 total regular just basic lands, and once you use this once, it's pretty much you got one more chance and that's it. So I'm gonna play with it, but this may come out because I have a deck that might use it. Legion's Landing lets you go and create a 1/1 vampire with lifelink, and then when you control 3 or more creatures, which in this deck you'll pretty much have it right away, it turns over into what I want, which is it transforms into a token creator. So it creates a 1/1 vampire, white vampire creature token with lifelink. So that is the purpose of this one. It creates a token and then just keeps on creating them. And it's a land at the same time. It starts to add white mana if you need it, but that's not what that's for. Cathar's Crusade, because you're going to be putting a lot of creature tokens, and this says whenever a creature enters the battlefield, not is cast. So whenever a creature comes into play, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature. I know that you're going to ask, where's the one card? I don't have it. I don't have an Anointed Procession. If I had it, it would have already been in here. I don't have another one. But I do have an Impact Tremors, and the Impact Tremors is because every time a creature comes into play, it deals damage, and it's, like I said, this deck is really focused on being more of a life drain than anything else. So, and then one more Anthem, Etchings of the Chosen. So obviously you choose Vampire, gives them all +1/+1, and then you can sacrifice a creature of the chosen type, and then you can give another creature indestructible. It's to help save things if you need to. For the most part, you don't really need to, but if it's there, it's there. It's an Anthem, and then it's also a help protect your own guys. I only have a couple Planeswalkers, but I'm going to go over them real quick. I don't have the one that I want. There's one that lets you just play vampires, I believe. And I can't remember his name off the top of my head because I've never opened him. But I may even put it up here just as a marker to show you what I'm talking about. I don't have that one. It's the one I think that lets you just play vampires from your graveyard, or lets you play them from your hand. I don't remember which one it is. I'll have it up there. I don't have it. I want it. I don't have it. But I have a Edgar Markov, and that one is the bane of a lot of people's existence, because if there's a life gain deck out there besides you, you can just make their life total 10. Not the reason it's in here. It's in here for the life gain part, and then obviously that's helpful. I got the Solemn Visitor Sorin as well. It gives all your creatures +1/+0 on lifelink, so there's the reason why that's in here. But it also puts a 2/2 instead of a 1/1 black vampire creature token with flying, and the flying is the reason why he's in here. It's vampires, and you would think they would all have flying. They don't. A lot of them don't, and I wanted more flying in here for protection. And of course, then you can always have the emblem, which at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. Obviously, you want to clear the way for your vampires if need. And then the last Sorin is Lord of Innistrad. his uptick is to create a 1/1 vampire with lifelink. Obviously, that's why he's in here. He does give you an emblem like right away, which is to give all your creatures +1/+0. So not horrible, but he's in here for that. You can use the ultimate on him, destroy up to 3 target creatures and/or other planeswalkers, which is always nice, and then return each card put into a graveyard this way on the battlefield under your control, so you get to take them as well. So a little bit more theft, kind of like Olivia. It steals things. 2 more sections. They're not very big. They're both 2 cards each. I don't have a lot. I didn't have another Demonic Tutor. I might take it out of another deck, but I went with Diabolic Intent because you have to sacrifice a creature, and I have plenty of tokens that'll be there, so you can search your library for a card. If I had a Demonic Tutor, I would. I didn't open one from the Strixhaven boxes, which is what I was trying to do, was open one from the... I'm doing the pack a day for the next year. I started with Strixhaven School of Mages just because I was hoping to get a Demonic Tutor out of one of the boxes. I haven't gotten one yet. It would go into this deck immediately. So until then, Grim Tutor, which does the same thing, only it makes you lose 3 life. So that's what I have as far as tutoring so far in this deck. I wish I had more to put in here. I do not. And then the last section is, I know, it's old, it's tired, it's been overused, but we're going to go with the infinite combo of Sanguine Bond, Exquisite Blood. Why? Vampire, vampire. It's vampire deck, it's vampire themed, it has to go in there. Sorry, not sorry. So, that is my current version of Edgar Markov. That's how I've built him with what I had without having the ability to trade right now, because the pandemic has made it so I don't get to see anybody, and I don't really trust a whole lot of people on the internet as far as my trades, because I have been screwed over before, because I'm too trusting. So, until all this gets resolved and I have time, and I get lucky, and I have a lot of things happen where I'm going to get the cards I need, this is what it's going to look like for now. If you have any questions or concerns about the deck, if you want to ask me anything at all, please do not hesitate. You can put a comment in the section below. You can go ahead and email me at bluebearsgames@gmail.com. You can go to the Facebook page and send me a message directly. I'm David Schwartz. If you need to know my name so you can contact me, that's, just call me Dave. And I'll go over anything you want to go over. Other than that, that is my video for the week. Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it out to your friends who might want to actually build an Edgar Markov deck. It's a pretty simple build. It's actually quite boring if you don't have things going. It's just a straightforward, life drain or tribal deck. So it's not the most exciting deck, but man, it can really do some damage. So enjoy. I will see you all next week. Please don't forget that I'm doing a pack a day for the next year, so go ahead and watch those videos. I'm sure one popped up today that you haven't seen yet, and I will be doing I got in my Adventures of the Forgotten Realms boxes in. I will start doing that after the Strixhaven boxes, so please go watch them every day. I will see you all, well, maybe tomorrow if you watch that video, and if not, I will see you all next week. Have a good one. See you then.